Small caveat before you start watching this episode with Debasish Paul. There were some issues with the video recording on my camera, so you will see very little of me during the interview. Audio is totally fine, so perhaps rather than watching it, you may want to go for a walk and listen to Debashish share some wonderful lessons on bringing up an autistic child. Thank you for listening. Today's guest is someone who has lived many lives in one career. Debasish Paul has been at the very top of the advertising world, working with global agency networks, serving as CMO for leading corporates, and winning some of the industry's biggest honors, including Cannes Lion and the New York Festival Awards. But Deb's most meaningful work began outside boardrooms and briefing rooms. He is the author of I Have Autism and I Like to Play Bad Tennis, a deeply personal book that I've read and genuinely loved. Drawing from his experiences as a parent to an autistic son, Deb now wears another hat, that of an autism coach, working closely with parents and helping them navigate the complex emotional journey of raising children who are neurodivergent. So I am thrilled that Deb has agreed to be with me on our podcast, Stories Seldom Told, because he's going to share with us some stories on his learning on understanding and living with somebody who has autism. Thank you, Deb, for joining me.
I'm glad that you got me here. Thank you very much for this opportunity. So, one common phrase that is used, that if you meet, if you know one person with autism, then you know only one person with autism, because the variations are so many. That's why the diagnosis is called autism spectrum. And the various shades of neurodivergence and how it affects the person, individuals, the viewing lens of life and experiencing life changes, from one person to another. So it's very difficult to generalize anything about autistic individuals. However, what I feel is a lot of talk today, and the research and the papers that I see mostly talk about safe spaces as one of the primary requirements for an autistic individual, maybe a child, an adult, for having stability, for organizing himself or herself, for staying calm, and all the executive functioning also working well. But then when we talk about safe spaces, usually I see that people talk about the physical spaces, which have direct impact on the sensorial issues. For example, somebody may have hyper sensitivity to light, so the lights are made dimmer, whether it's a classroom or whether it's in a workplace or at home. Now that would mean that I'm creating a relatively safer space for the autistic individual. Or it could be to do with sound. Many children on the spectrum, they suffer from this great difficulty of audio hypo or hypersensitivity. So either it is too less, but most cases we see it is too much. So the sound level that you and I are sort of perceiving is not the level at which they're perceiving it. It is much louder. And they're absolutely, and it's a very common sight. You will see them, covering their ears, or using, noise cutting headphones. So these are common. But what I'm saying is, we are not talking enough about unsafe spaces, which is in the emotional arena. So the physical sensorial inputs is what we are looking at and managing and doing. A lot of good work is happening on that front. But in the emotional space, which there is unsafe feelings for the individual, we don't necessarily look at.
This is a really good point, Deb. But before you even tell us a little bit more and share a real life story of what that looks like, I just want all of us, our listeners and myself, to understand that what Dave and I would be talking about today is not the explanation of autism. How did he get it? How was it diagnosed? We would be here for hours if that was the case. Instead, what we're going to focus on are certain areas of learning to live and learning to understand somebody who has autism. And Dave has learned, because you have lived with your son, you've learned, you've seen him growing up, you understand. And so from that learning, other listeners who have children who are autistic might say, oh, that makes sense. So the point you're making right now is the idea of whenever, and you're absolutely right, whenever we think about safe space, we think about a physical safe space.
Yeah.
Oh, let's make sure that there's nobody coming in to bother the child. Let's make sure it's all okay. Safe room, headphones to cut out sound, and so on. But you're talking about something called an emotional. Yes, do share a story on that thing.
Yes. And of course, I must, at the outset, say that I've made mistakes.
I bet.
And my learnings, actually, I draw upon those mistakes and then did a little more research on this matter. And that's how I became, I could formulate strategies to overcome them, So to begin with, there were mistakes happening. So very briefly, I will read one of the stories from my book, which sort of highlights this issue that we are talking about. In the middle of a cold winter night, I suddenly heard Noel, my son's name is Noel's panicky scream, Baba, Baba, I have broken Hari sir. Yes, I have broken him. Now, I woke up with a start and switched on the bedside lamp. Noel, then 19, 6 years, this is 6 years after Hari sir, about who we mentioned just now, left him from his school at the age of 13. His face was white with fear. I sat up, my eyes barely open. That early parenting lesson of being gentle and making sure your tone is adequately soft at all times when the child's tone gets excited and high-pitched reverberated. All of this was passing through my head, so I kept my calm. Gently placing my hand on his shoulders, I asked him, Noel, what are you talking about? I saw him crouch in fear, and his guilt-filled eyes shone through even in partial darkness. A familiar alarm rang in my head. Something must have gone terribly wrong. He shook his head and repeated, Baba, Baba, I have really broken Hari sir. A longish pause followed this, and then I have broken him forever. Holding my hand, he walked me to the drawing room, switched on the light, and pointed towards the brilliantly colored 4.5 statuette in our living room of the Harlequin clown on a shiny white tabletop. As I looked closer, I realized that the statue of the clown stood headless. And then I spotted the separated head on the table surface. It had been neatly twisted out of the body with the hat on the head and the black mask all intact. It was an unusual act of aggression by the boy, and it was a disturbing sight. My first reaction was to give him the shouting of a lifetime, as is usual for most of us parents. Then looking at him, I realized that the boy was immersed in guilt. My temptation to tear into him had to be controlled. I calmed myself with considerable effort. Why are you talking about Hari sir? I broke Hari sir. Bewildered, I held up the Harlequin in my hand. Is this Hari sir? Now, Hari sir had been one of Noel's favorite teachers when he was 13.
And this is age 19.
19. So 6 years later.
But he's remembering that.
Happening. Yes. But Hari sir had left for a new job at a school in Abu Dhabi. So like I said, 6 years ago. When he had quit his job in the special section of the school, Noel had suffered a lot. He had always been deeply attached to his teachers, all of them, and Hari sir had been a favorite. So when he suddenly left Noel in the proverbial lurch, the boy experienced a lot of pain and anguish. Unfortunately, the impact of the sudden exit of any person close to Noel had never been considered a situation of vital importance and something that he should have been prepared for well in advance. So neither the school nor us in the family had paid much attention to this issue.
Emotional safe
We were
space.
aware that he's going to go, but we had nothing done about it. We had not talked to him about it. We had not,
prepared him emotionally.
Yeah, it's not just talking. We have to prepare full strategy.
Of course.
And you have to give it time for him to cope with this new situation.
Yes.
And this is different for the neurotypical people.
But
we
also
all learn to cope with disappointments. We have to get disappointed, disheartened.
No, but even otherwise, I was
Over a
thinking
period of time,
slightly
we do.
differently.
Yeah.
For example, if you have two children, and you do, what is the age gap between the two children?
4 years.
So did you tell Noel when he was 4 that he was going to have another sibling?
Yes.
You prepared the child.
Yes.
You had the wisdom
Yeah.
to emotionally prepare the older child
Yes.
for the arrival of the younger child.
Yes.
We all do that. As parents who have more than one child, it is just automatic.
Yes.
It doesn't even occur to us not to do that. And yet, when their favorite teacher is leaving the country forever, whether it's somebody who's neurodivergent or not, it doesn't occur to us. And especially what you're saying is that for somebody who's neurodivergent, it is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
For somebody who's autistic.
And the nature of his emotional bonding is very different from the neurotypical.
Right.
He cannot deal with the fact that this bond will not be physically manifested. It's suddenly going to disappear. So it's too much. I mean, we all recognize this, but the point I'm making is that all of us are equipped with our ability to deal with deep disappointments, hurt, betrayal in our lives. We can cope with it. We navigate through it all. We remember it. We feel angry. We feel very sad. But we still within the equilibrium that we require to function effectively. So this guy does not have that ability. Now, something very interesting happened. I recount the fact that he used to talk about Hari sir for all these 6 years, almost every alternate day. So his attachment, I could only realize the depth of his attachment. So he used to have these obsessive monologues about Hari sir. He used to narrate the details of many little interactions that he had with him at school. He would enumerate the long list of things he would want to do that Hari sir would say no to, not yes to, no to, because the no was more interesting. There was also oft-repeated tale about the times Noel would raid Hari sir's lunchbox.
Oh.
He recounted all this in a storytelling style that ended with a chuckle and an exclamation in Bengali, Ki moja holo baba. What fun that was, Dad. So this was all happening, and I was the patient, active listener to all of this over the years. And for us, Hari sir is never going to appear in his life again.
But at some points, though, because as you said, you had not prepared the young 13-year-old Noel for the loss of his favorite teacher. Neither at the school, and neither the school nor the parents had even thought that somebody like Noel is going to be completely devastated. Was Noel in a school with other neurodivergent children?
Yes.
Oh, and yet this happened, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so something else, though, that I'm thinking of. So these 6 years, from 13 to 19, he's continuously talking about Hari sir, shares his stories and the fun that he had in stealing Hari sir's lunch and so on and so forth. Does that then occur to you at some point during the 6 years, even before the headless mannequin story in the middle of the night, does it occur to you that this is all about emotional safe space?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And therefore, I was engaging, not just being an active listener patiently to all his monologues, which would continue, like I said, for day after day. So, and I didn't interrupt him. But then, of course, an idea came to my head that why don't I convert this? And that was my general attitude, which you will come across when you read the book, is that how do I convert this into a learning opportunity? Even this, when lamenting about his past. So I actually told him, let's see where Hari sir lives now. So see, these are pictures of Abu Dhabi, I would say, and point to the images on the online. And I was only trying to break through the obsessive merry-go-round thought patterns that refuse to stop or change direction. This also allowed me to explore the internet with Noel, helping him learn something more about image search engine, and he quickly picked up on the logos and various other visual sort of icons. So that was my other trick, that how do I convert.
So that's interesting. So what you were doing, in my understanding, is here is a young boy, 13, 14, 16, 18, whichever age he is, he's got this monologue. I mean, how long is a monologue lasting, give or take?
20 minutes.
That's what I wanted us to understand this. We're not talking about something that lasts 30 seconds or 1 minute or even 3 minutes. 20 minutes is a very long time. And so what you, Debasish, is doing is two things. You're thinking to yourself, oh God, I can't handle these 20. I mean, you're only human.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, how am I going to stay calm and patient, not sure that I'm at all annoyed, continue to show interest and care and love, and keep him in an emotionally safe space. But equally, I'm getting a bit tired of this. So what is it that I can do to stop him? So there is a level of, can I use the word desperation, dare I?
Yes, you can.
Right, because I'm just thinking, we've got to put the reality of the parents' voice and emotion into this.
Yes.
And I'm visualizing Dave sitting there with lovely Noel, who is going on for 20 minutes about how he has done something which you've already heard 100 times already. And you want to try and change it.
Yeah.
And so not only do you, so you've got two things that are motivating you here. One is that you want to change and break the monologue because it's getting exhausting for you personally. But two is you say, let me use that opportunity for him to learn something new.
Yes.
So let's open a computer. Let's show him, I'm being very simplistic in thinking, what the map of the world looks like.
Yeah.
Let's show him where the Middle East is and where Abu Dhabi is, and so on.
And how you can search with images and stuff.
All of that.
And he was very keen, sort of, so suddenly I had a very receptive, student, because I'm listening to his story and then connecting that with some new learning. But again, this is a separate point, that there is, as whenever you find an emotional connect with your stimulus, learning stimulus, you'll always get engagement. So here there was one readily available, so I just say Hari sir, and he's in Abu Dhabi.
He was all
he wants to know.
Yeah.
So that, of course, I used. So there are many sort of instances that this happened, and then one day, this is after those 6 years, Hari sir suddenly arrived in Delhi. Yeah. So Noel and I were excited to talk to him on the phone. He said, I had my number, he called me. Noel was very sentimental on the phone, as was expected. Hari sir, can you come to my house and watch TV? So this is your typical autistic kind of, social conversation. We will watch Al Jazeera channel. I will also bake a brownie for you. Or we could meet at Starbucks or whatever, So now he's a 19-year-old, so he knows a little more about socialization. Now, so there are other interesting things about what are the options of where we should meet and all of that happen. So in anticipation of the meeting with Hari sir, Noel used to break into a loud monologue for hours now. There was irony surrounding this because he's so excited that when we were going to meet him, there was irony surrounding this because I knew that not much would happen. I was trying to imagine there is Noel and there is Hari sir. What would be in terms of communication exchange? The face-to-face meeting, it's not going to be like what we experience. None of that animated chatter and sharing of experiences that we are all used to. We're taking turns in conversation, loud laughter, witty remarks, teasing, recounting of anecdotes, the usual fare in our social catch-ups. Nor would there be any awkward silences, interestingly. Maybe Noel would break into a song by ABBA or Celine Dion. That was how things were going to be in Noel's world of expressing love. So these are again side thoughts on my part.
No, which is lovely, because side thoughts, I mean, as I mentioned in my introduction, I actually read Dave's book before I even met Dave.
Yes.
And it is because I read the book that I was looking forward to meeting you and talking to you. Because what I felt when I read the book is, yes, of course, I learned about autism and I learned about bringing up an autistic young man, 19-year-old from a very young age. But what I learned so much was about Debasish Paul, about the father, about the way your side thoughts, as you very sweetly said right now, about the way you were thinking, and perhaps that's got something to do with the fact that you're a creative advertising man, but your approach to dealing with somebody who's autistic has been very, very creative right from the beginning. And I think that's perhaps part of your own DNA. And I think for those of us who perhaps don't have that creative streak, who are not award-winning advertising executives, there will be many who are listening, but who have young children who are autistic. I think it's about listening to your learning and trying to be as creative as they can within their own circumstances.
Which is the purpose of writing this book.
Yeah.
That it is, if you push it yourself a little bit and reflect on it, you'll find new ways, new ideas will come to you.
We can all be creative.
Yes, absolutely. So now we come to the ending of the story. The day arrived when we were to meet
Hari sir.
Noel and I were all set for the grand rendezvous. But then Hari sir called up and cancelled an hour before the appointed time.
Oh no. Now how is that for emotional safe space?
So Noel erupted and had a solid challenge of pacifying the boy as he suddenly, for the first time, resorted to self-harming behavior.
What did that look like?
Banging his head on the wall.
Oh no.
Now, now a new date was fixed with Hari sir to come over to our place. Yet again, he cancelled on the appointed day, saying that he had gotten injured after having fallen on the road. This time, when I shared this with Noel, his first reaction was one of deep concern for Hari sir.
Oh.
There was no implosion this time. Worried, he told me he wanted to talk to Hari sir immediately. He made me dial him, and Noel inquired about his injury, spoke to him, how his beloved teacher was coping. Every day without fail, Noel inquired about Hari sir. From his non-stop monologue, I could fathom that he was conjuring up images of Hari sir in a hospital getting injections, with doctors attending to his injury and being plastered. He would suddenly exclaim in the middle of a tennis practice session, Hari sir has gone for a change of plaster today. So there was almost a visual track running in his head about what is going on with Hari sir. So the boy was deeply disappointed, like I said, when he didn't turn up for the first time. Second time the accident happened. Now just see, his love is so much that he's no longer, suffering from the agony of not meeting him. He's so, troubled by the fact that his teacher is suffering and going through this medical treatment. Many days rolled by. There was no call from Hari sir.
So you were saying, Dave, you were just reading from your book, and the idea of Noel played good tennis, a reasonably good tennis. I mean, the name of the book is also about tennis. He did, didn't he?
So, he played good tennis, but he enjoyed bad tennis.
Okay, fine.
Playing bad.
So he enjoyed tennis, but enjoyed bad tennis. Fair enough. But he's playing tennis. He's there with his racket and his ball, and he's playing. And most young children who are playing tennis are concentrating on the racket, the ball, the playing of the tennis. But alongside that, what you've said to me, and I'm quoting what you wrote in the book, forgive me if I'm slightly paraphrasing, the idea that there's another track in his brain going along, saying, Dad, you know what, Baba, right now Hari sir is going to have his plaster put on. So he is attempting to play tennis, which people need 100% concentration. And then on the other side, he's also got this. So I'm just wondering, do us neuronormative people, do we do that? Explain that to us.
I think we also do when we have a high level of anxiety in our back of our heads. Even if we are working or playing or whatever activity we are in, the mind is still there. So there is a way that we are able to function, but yet the parallel track, the anxiety, the worry, those keep coming.
And it's usually anxiety, it's usually negative thoughts, not, oh my God,
Especially
there's
when
a
you're worrying
amazing,
about a
yes.
situation or about another person, or something is coming up.
We've all been there,
For
haven't
example,
we?
or a job interview is
Yeah.
coming up. So
And you
that
could be
anxiety
doing
could be
something.
there. Yes.
You could, I'm just making up a different story. I don't play tennis. But for example, you could be doing something you're good at,
Yeah.
like driving a car,
Yeah.
or cooking a meal, or even having a conversation,
Yeah.
like you and I are sitting and chatting right now.
Yes.
But while I'm looking at you and smiling and nodding my head, there is this going on in my brain about some major thing that I'm not telling you about.
Yeah. Only difference, I would say, in Noel's case, or an individual with autism, again, I can't generalize, but I've seen that happening with many of them, is that their mind is very visual. So the visuals that are actually running through his head are very rich, are very, very realistic.
Noel sir on a hospital bed.
Yeah.
Noel sir with the plaster being
Yeah.
put on his foot.
And with all the details
And
there.
was he having plaster put on his foot? We don't know.
No, we don't know. He's imagining.
Yes.
And all of this is very vivid in his mind. I think that's the difference there. So let me read the end bit. Many days rolled by. There was no call from Hari sir.
Oh.
He did not answer his phone. Noel kept badgering me to try, and I left many messages, but there was never any reply. The boy was heartbroken, and there were no signs of his distress receding with the passage of days. It took a lot for me and his mother to calm him. We never heard from the teacher again. The surrogate assault on the Harlequin clown figure was but a manifestation of being let down. And this comes up 6 years later, when Hari sir appears in his life, reappears in his life in Delhi, and does not meet them.
And lets him down.
Yeah. So, so his unexpressed hurt and anguish needed an outlet. And that's why that
is actually such a powerful story, Dev. And thank you for that. First and foremost, the fact that this sorrow of losing his teacher has been within him for 6 years.
Yeah.
That is a long time for a little child. Most children, we say, forget things.
Yes.
Because they've got so much going on in their lives.
Yeah.
And they move on.
Yeah.
And yet, he had not. And of course, we often say, and I think you would appreciate that and agree with me on this, that if something is bothering us, it kind of keeps churning within us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Neuronormative people I'm talking about.
Yes.
And it keeps churning within us. And I'm not telling anybody, and then I happen to meet you, and you say something that's a bit irritating, but only slightly, and I completely flip, and I'm out of control. And you go away thinking, what was wrong with Smita? Why was she so out of control? Because it wasn't you. It was what was churning within me for maybe a few days or maybe a few weeks.
Yes.
And what you're saying to me is that with Noel, something had been churning for 6 years.
Yeah.
And the camel on the straw on the camel's back was Noel sir saying he will come once, twice, and then no communication.
No communication.
And that is, I'm feeling the pain sitting here on Noel's behalf. On Hari sir, sorry, I'm saying Noel sir. Hari sir. So
this thing about safe space, coming back to my starting point, is that this is a message for people in the community who are dealing with people who are on the autism spectrum. They have to have this sensitivity, an unusual level of sensitivity, to plan things well in advance. Otherwise, you create a trauma which will remain forever. Which will remain forever. I mean, that's a big sentence. Yeah. So you have to be sensitive to this, and that's what creation of a emotional safe space is. But then what is, message? There is sensitive, and I would like to think that all of us human beings are naturally sensitive. We are caring, especially of our own children who happen to be autistic, and we would try and do the right thing. And yet, what you're saying is
We let ourselves down.
Yes, because we don't prioritize it enough. We don't understand the importance of it all. Because we feel just like everybody else, वो ठीक है यार, वो भूल जाएगा. It will just, glide through. Time will heal, and those kind of lines of thinking. So those don't apply here.
I'm wondering whether you've got time for just another short story of your learning in relation to Noel.
Sure. So there is another one which I thought is also relevant in today's discussion about reasonable accommodation. And this is a term which has come to us from the Western world, in particular the tech industry, where the employment of autistic individuals is quite widely prevalent now.
And not just autism, if I may say, because as you know, I live in London, Dave, and working within the DEI's arena, when we talk about reasonable accommodation, it's also, for example, someone who cannot see, cannot hear, and they are working in the offices to give them the right kind of environment. Somebody perhaps who just has seasonal affective disorder, and in a city like London, where there's very little sunlight, sadly, the right kind of light needs to be given for the individual. I remember a colleague years ago, I'm talking about 15, 20 years ago, who we created reasonable accommodation for her because she would have what they call SAD, because there was no natural light. In winter, the sun rises late and sets by 3:30 in the afternoon, and she's in the office the entire time. So they would have this light on her table, which was called reasonable accommodation, to help her overcome this SAD. So that's the SAD that that is what you're talking about.
Yes.
But in relation to children, what children? Adults, children, people with autism. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
And yes, you're right. It's not, we're not just talking about people with autism or so many other conditions who are sensitive to various, sensorial issues are there.
Yeah.
And you have to, and it's very, the reasonable accommodation is something, concept is to, not just with physical and sensory issues, but also with physical, space issues. So some people need more space around them to work, or a quieter place to work. Also, when their stress levels go up or anxiety levels go up, there has to be a calming place. So these are things which are being done already in various workplaces. So there is a place to go and sit alone and just quieten down, sort of thing. So that allows you to find your balance and not allow the anxiety to go up to a meltdown situation. So those things are being practiced. But my little story about Noel is that there was a good deal of planning for the reasonable accommodation to happen. Yet, something absolutely unanticipated happened. And it was a very sort of very disappointing situation for him and us. So the thing was that, let me see, when an autistic person is being placed, in the workplace, like for me, with all the learning and, training of Noel and, on one-on-one kind of thing, both in school, actually, largely it was one-on-one for him. We couldn't take to a classroom situation. And at home, also, there was a lot of coaching happening. When you're the parent of a child with a condition, neurological divergent condition, you are mentally occupied with various questions and a wide set of concerns. The ones that gnawed at me the most were, what does it mean to be in a workplace? What does it mean to be doing things in the presence of so many people unknown to you?
So hold on just a sec. So you are telling me that Noel has got a job now?
Yeah.
Aha! And he's 19 years old. Yeah. And he's got some kind of paid job, internship?
Yeah. It was
and what is the job?
No, this is not at 19. This is actually, he was 17.
Okay.
So below the... but it was more like an internship. So
okay. And what was the job?
He was working in a bakery.
He loved to cook and he loved to bake.
Yeah. So he was working in an actually retail space.
Yeah.
Because I wanted him out of the sheltered sort of space, physical space.
School and home
and vocational center.
Yeah.
So how do you place? So I had worked it out with the the owner of this bakery, where he could be there. And the bakery also had an outlet, retail outlet actually. So maybe the products were coming from an external bakery, and then the finishing is to be done in the first floor, and the retail counter is on the ground floor. So they obviously assessed him and they placed him there, rather than the big commercial bakery. But they felt first let him
Safer, yeah.
Here, and it's safer, and the tasks he can start from the finishing part, not the retail consumer facing, customer facing, because those skills he doesn't have. The social skills still was not there to an extent where he could actually be placed in the retail counter. Anyway, so that's the background. He's 17. He starts going there. Everything is going fine. He's doing very well. The big point that was always a concern for us was that what if he feels hungry or if he wants to eat, try out something, because it is all food products across, then what happens? So we had to train him for that. And that training happened before he actually went there, because it was.
How do you train someone?
Yeah. So
to say you can't just pick up the food and eat it.
No.
Is that what you mean by training?
Yeah. But we don't say that. You're not supposed to pick up this food and eat. So I had to create a very strong rationale. See, the thing is, the autistic mind is also very, very linear and logical, and can also be very, very lateral. So it is both, and I write about that in my book. So the vertical intelligence or the linear intelligence, he needs to be given a reason. So I told him that this is for customers only. All the stuff that you see in those very beautiful looking, cakes and all the goodies that are laid out are all for somebody called the customer. So it's not for you. So that reinforcement happened. Is perfect.
Okay.
However, he still needed to have the solution to when he wants to eat, because it's going to be there for hours. So he had to, like most people do, he carried a tiffin. Now, this was my idea that he cannot eat the tiffin inside. See, he cannot think that he can do the eating activity inside the premises.
Because that is for customers. Customers eat, customers buy. I want to eat, I have to leave the building. Yes, so that makes sense.
So the thing again with this linear thinking is that you have to create a structure. And once you've created a structure, the interesting thing is he will conform. He will not break the structure. So he used to go outside, eat, come back, and resume his work. And not a single thing did he ever read this piece. So one day, as Noel finished work and was about to leave, the store supervisor who had built a rapport with him said, "Noel, you did very good work today. Here's a muffin, you deserve it. Your reward, take it." Noel was happy but confused, since his Baba had told him these were all meant for customers and that he could not eat them. Nonetheless, he accepted his reward after some hesitation. Unfortunately, the rule that all the products in display were for customers was broken as a result of this. The next day, after he finished his work, he unabashedly went to the display shelf of muffins in the shop and picked out 2 pieces to eat. The supervisor got annoyed, telling him that it was not okay to do so. The man did not realize that his actions on the previous day had led to this. No logical reasoning would help reverse it. There was no stopping him now. This episode reinforces yet again that structures in the autism world are sacred, and there was no messing with them.
Oh, that's a very good story. So, I mean, can we find out, was poor Noel sacked?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So many lessons were learned there.
I am so sorry. Many lessons were learned
there. Noel suffered a brief trauma after the sacking, but he got to learn the concept of being sacked for non-compliance. So that came up later also in our conversations.
But sadly, now here's a question, if I may ask. Now, you had spent quite a lot of time with Noel, making sure that he was clear about his parameters, this you're allowed to do, this you're not, even so much as you do not eat your lunch inside the workplace. And he followed that to the T, no problem. Did you at any point have a conversation with the supervisor and explain, this is what I've done with Noel. I want you to back me up and make sure that you never offer him food inside.
Yeah.
You had
the fact that he was stepping out to have his tiffin, all of that was explained. That he's not supposed to have anything from here.
No, but did you explain it in the way you explained it to Noel? I'm just trying to.
Yeah, perhaps that was something like it's very common to make exceptions. So he was making an exception. Now the point is,
you cannot make an exception.
A structure is so sacrosanct in the autism world that even an exception, that we understand that it is an exception, and he also thought it was only an exception. He was really very happy with this boy, and he wanted to reward him, and he got carried away. So,
and not just that, he asked him to go and help himself.
Yes.
At least if he had taken it and given him, that was one slight aberration, but not a huge one.
So what I'm trying to drive here is that when we talk about reasonable accommodation, there's good amount of thinking through that needs to happen. The superficial things get handled, but what about structures? What about the bosses, the supervisors, the other people? They have to be totally in sync with the particular individual. Yes, it is a lot of work, yes, but then without this work, you also won't get success and the workplace with the autistic individual. And the fact is that they are usually excellent in workplaces.
This is what I've heard as well.
Else falls in,
because they're very bright, aren't they?
Very bright, very clever, and also very very committed. And the other thing is they will never lie. So that's again a virtue, I think, in a workplace.
So true.
And I've heard so many of these people, supervisors who are trained, and they say that we can always rely on them.
They won't let us down.
Yeah, they will never let us down.
If they don't know how to do it, they'll tell you.
They'll tell you.
There is no, sir, okay, sir, we'll do it, sir, and then not completed. Yeah. No, this is fascinating there, because I know it's only 2 stories, and this book is full of many more stories that certainly I would ask you to buy the book and read it. You can get it on Amazon in pretty much many parts of the world. So, but just, you obviously have learned so much. Are you able to, is there any one key lesson that all parents of autistic children need to remember all the time? Because there are so many lessons that they have to learn and practice, and we're all only human. And as you yourself said right in the beginning, we make mistakes, and you will make mistakes, and that's just fine. But something that has to be instilled in your brain for always.
So there are several things, but the one which for me, which is absolutely number one, is that you have to feed into the need for structure. So the autistic mind's appetite for structure is enormous, and we don't usually view the world through that kind of a structure. We have lots of flexibilities. It's okay if a train comes late, and all of that. So we are naturally equipped to deal with it, but they are not. But the point is that this difficulty of coping with things have to be precise and in orderly and sequenced and stuff is also and this is what my thinking was, that it is also an opportunity to convert that into teaching things, learning new things, and social skills, language learning, numerical, or so any kind of learning. You will have to feed it through the structure. That works very well for even a sports activity. That's what I demonstrate in my book, how you can teach, and I could teach tennis, a difficult game, complex game, through structure.
To structure. So the one key thing that all parents of autistic children must remember is the idea about structure, and as far as possible, to not compromise and to keep it there. So thank you, Dave, and thank you, Noel, for teaching Dave
Yes.
and giving us some really interesting lessons on the idea and understanding of how to manage a young person who has autism. So, Debasish Paul, I have autism and like to play good, no, not good, bad tennis.
Yeah.
Dave, thank you once again. I really enjoyed these stories about Noel.
Thank you
And I
so
think
much.
I have learned so much as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Smita.